Okay guys, I wanted to show y'all something here. Okay, like on these ceramics, a lot of times they push them hard. This is 30 blade, obviously, missing teeth, used under a guard. But a reason why I'm making the video here is, okay, so you know when you go back together, when you're assembling blades before you give them back, you know you're putting your oil on the front rail, you're putting a little oil on the back rail, and then you're putting a drip or a drop, whatever, on the top of the cutter to give back to your clients. I know some of you guys, especially on these ceramic blades, they're bad about wadding up that plastic guide if they're not oiling real well or whatever. Or, you know, these ceramics, they get much hotter. You can see how bad that one is. I'm replacing it. Teeth are all broken. But anyway, I've been going through some different lubrications. Of course, a lot of you guys are using this super lube stuff on the top in between the cutter and the comb, and I know that's fine. It works. It stays in place a whole lot better than just the regular oil that we're using to lubricate the blade, but it's kind of slimy. And what I'm finding is, you know, they'll use their clipper blade, and they'll have hair and shit all over the top of it, and then they're wiping it off, and it's just not, it's not conducive for it to stay in place for long enough to really protect that cutter. And then they go back to just putting their regular oil in there whenever they oil or whatever, and look, what it pulls down to is they don't end up with lubrication in between the cutter and the guide for long enough to keep them from doing damage in between sharpenings sometimes, you know, depending on what's going on. Well, what I found, instead of using this super lube stuff, which is, like I say, it's kind of gummy and kind of whatever, and it ends up attracting a lot of hair on the top, and it gets in between the guide and the cutter. I've gone to this stuff right here. This stuff is it's made for assembly lube. Like if you're assembling an engine, you put it on the cam bearings, you put it on the crank, you know, you put it everywhere in the engine. And what it's made for is, if you're building engines and you're going to send one out the door with no lubrication in it, when they first started up, it has no oil pressure. So you need something there to keep from damaging the bearings against whatever the other surface is, the babbitt material there. And that's what this is for. It's assembly lube. This stuff's synthetic. It says right here, used to pre-lube bearings, cams, lifters, valve train, prevents seizing, galling, scuffing, compatible with all oils, super slick and tacky, easy to use, and also it stays in place somewhere I saw there. It's, let's see, perfect for engine building, contains zinc, moly, and other high pressure additives for maximum protection during engine break-in. In other words, you put this shit in place, it stays in place for a long time, against friction, against movement, blah, blah, blah. But what's cool about it is, it comes out and it's just a little bit, I got it open. It comes out and it's just a little bit, it's like oil. It has a little bit of a snotty surface to it, but it's very thin and liquidy. And what I'm finding is, once you get that in between the guide and the cutter, on top of the cutter, it stays in place, dude. I got these girls coming back to me, you know, after I go back to sharpen 3 months later, and when I take the spring and guide assembly back off the top of the blade, it's still got that stuff on it. It's still I can wipe my finger across there and it feels just like that stuff that came out of that bottle right there. It's staying in place, but it's not attracting hair because it gets underneath there and stays in place. And they're not as apt to try to wipe it off when they see that big booger of grease like this on top of there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, this stuff right here is the bomb, dude. Been using it, and now I'm putting a drop of this when I assemble blades. I'm going in with my regular oiler, and I do my oil front and rear rails. But instead of using the drip of the regular thin oil, which I'm not using the same stuff a lot of guys are either on that. I'm using Andis 7-in-1. I'll show you real quick what I'm using to oil. It smells like really good. It smells like, I don't know, they put some stuff in there to make it smell good. This is what I'm using. This blade care stuff right here. Coolant, deodorizer, lubricant, cleaner. It's called 7-in-1, and it used to come in a different bottle, look a little different than this, but this is what I'm using. It smells good, it's got plenty of lubrication properties to it, and that's what I'm using to oil in between my cutter and comb when I reassemble blades and return them to the customer. But on the top, I'm putting 1 drop of this Lucas oil assembly lube, and thought I'd share that, man. It's working out real well for me, and like I say, it seems to stay in place and not attract a bunch of hair. So probably a longer video versus bullshit, but I really love this stuff. So might want to give it a try if you've got an issue with burning up guides on ceramics or whatever, where you're looking for more lubrication up here, but you're looking for it to stay without them wiping it off, and you've been using super lube, stuff's good. I mean, it's great, no doubt about it. But like I said, they end up wiping it off because it attracts hair. This is a little bit better in that even if they wipe it off, it's thin enough that it stays in between the cutter and the comb, and you get that lubrication and it stays there for quite some time. So this is the stuff. This is the stuff.